Imagine a place so high, so utterly alone, that the only sound is wind. A rock, a fortress, a last refuge at the edge of the world. And on that rock, 1,000 people who chose something the Roman Empire never expected. They chose death over chains. But how did it come to this? How does a civilization, ancient, proud, deeply rooted in covenant and law, arrive at the summit of a desert cliff and decide that the end is better than surrender? To understand Masada, we must first understand the wound. And the wound begins with empire. In 63 BCE, the Roman general Pompey the Great did something that would echo for a century. He walked into Jerusalem. He didn't sack it, he didn't burn it, he simply entered. Looked around the Holy of Holies, the sacred inner chamber where no Gentile was permitted, and walked back out. He took nothing, he harmed no one, and yet, that single act, that casual, contemptuous trespass, was received as a violation so total, so absolute, that it never truly healed. Judea was now a client kingdom of Rome, not a conquest, not yet. A client, a friend, the kind of friend who reminds you every single day who holds the real power. The Jewish people had survived the Babylonians, the Persians, the Seleucid Greeks. They had fought and bled and reclaimed their temple under the Maccabees, but Rome was different. Rome did not demand your surrender, it demanded your gratitude. And into this simmering world, Rome sent its most cunning appointment. Herod. Herod the Great. The name alone is a contradiction. He was, by almost any architectural measure, the greatest builder the ancient Near East had ever seen. He expanded the Temple Mount into one of the largest religious precincts in the Roman world. He built the port city of Caesarea Maritima, a marvel of engineering, out of open sea. He constructed palaces, aqueducts, amphitheaters, entire cities, and, on a plateau in the Judean desert, a natural fortress of sandstone and silence, he built Masada. 440 meters above the Dead Sea, the lowest point on Earth shimmering below. And above it, terraced palaces clinging to vertical cliff faces, bathhouses, storerooms packed with enough grain for years, cisterns carved from rock holding millions of liters of rainwater. Masada was not just a fortress, it was a statement. I am untouchable. Come and try. But Herod the Great was also, by every historical account, a man of staggering, terrifying violence. He executed his own sons. He murdered his beloved wife Mariamne, then wept for her the rest of his life. He ruled through fear so profound that the population of Judea barely breathed without his permission. He died in 4 BCE, alone, despised, racked with a disease ancient historians described in terms so vivid they still make physicians wince. He left behind 3 things: his buildings, his dynasty, and a people who had forgotten what freedom felt like. After Herod, Rome stopped pretending. Judea became a Roman province, governed by a series of prefects and procurators, Roman administrators who, with a few notable exceptions, seemed almost professionally committed to maximum provocation. They taxed without mercy. They plundered the temple treasury. They installed their own symbols, graven images, golden shields, in Jerusalem's sacred spaces, daring the population to object. And the population seethed. By the 50s and 60s, CE Judea was a pressure vessel. Multiple factions competed for the soul of the resistance and of Jewish identity itself. The Pharisees counseled patience, the Sadducees counseled accommodation, the Essenes withdrew to the desert and waited for divine intervention. And then there were the Zealots, and their most radical wing, the Sicarii, named for the Sika, a short, curved dagger hidden beneath a cloak. Their message was simple: no king but God. No tax to Caesar, no compromise with empire. Liberation, total and immediate, or death. The procurator Gessius Florus would give them their spark. In the year 66 CE, he stole 17 talents of silver from the temple treasury. Jerusalem erupted. This was what a century of friendship with Rome had cost. A stolen treasury, a burning city, and a people with nothing left to lose. What happened next? Historians still argue about whether to call it heroism or catastrophic miscalculation. The Jewish rebels won. In the autumn of 66 CE, a Jewish force ambushed the Roman legate Cestius Gallus and his 12th Legion at the pass of Beth Horon, one of Rome's most disciplined fighting units. 12,000 soldiers with artillery, cavalry, support, the finest war machine on earth. They were routed, utterly, catastrophically. 6,000 Roman soldiers died in a single afternoon. The eagle standard of the 12th Legion captured. A humiliation so severe that the Legion would never again bear its honorific. Jerusalem celebrated. The Temple Mount echoed with jubilation. For one extraordinary, intoxicating moment, it seemed like God was actually on their side. It would be the high point of the revolt. This in Rome, Emperor Nero was furious. And he dispatched the man he trusted most, not one of his court favorites, not a political appointment. He sent Vespasian, a soldier's soldier, gruff, methodical, utterly without mercy. A man who had built his reputation by being slower and more thorough than anyone else. Vespasian did not charge. He did not storm. He surrounded. What Rome could not destroy from outside, the revolt began to destroy from within. As Vespasian systematically crushed Galilee, city by city, village by village, the rebel factions inside Jerusalem began to turn on each other with a ferocity that shocked even their enemies. The Zealots murdered the high priests they deemed too moderate. The Sicarii assassinated wealthy Jews they suspected of collaboration. Faction fought faction in the streets. Food warehouses, the city's greatest strategic asset, were burned, deliberately, by Jews, destroying their own survival in the name of ideological purity. The Jewish historian Josephus, himself a captured rebel general who had switched sides to serve Rome, would later write of this period with a grief so raw it reads like an open wound. The sedition destroyed the city. Rome destroyed the sedition. The meanwhile, something extraordinary happened in Rome. Nero died. Civil war erupted. The year of the 4 emperors. And in the chaos, Vespasian himself was proclaimed emperor. He left Judea to his son, Titus, young, ambitious, talented, and about to make a name that would echo through history, though not in the way he might have hoped. In the spring of 70 CE, Titus arrived outside Jerusalem with 4 legions, 60,000 soldiers, engineers, artillery, the full overwhelming weight of Roman military science. And Jerusalem held. Weeks passed. The walls held. The defenders, even divided, even starving, even fighting each other between Roman assaults, held. A ring of earthworks, watchtowers, and camps completely surrounding the city. Nothing in, nothing out. Not food, not water, not hope. What followed was one of the worst documented famines in ancient history. Josephus describes people eating leather, eating hay, eating each other. 600,000 bodies were thrown over the walls. 600,000. And still, Jerusalem did not surrender. In August, the Romans finally breached the inner walls. The fighting entered the temple complex itself, and then came the moment that would define the entire war. The Temple Mount caught fire. Whether Titus ordered it, whether it was accident or act of war, ancient sources disagree. What is not disputed is what happened next. The Second Temple of Jerusalem, the house of God rebuilt and expanded by Herod, one of the architectural wonders of the ancient world, burned to the ground on the 9th day of the month of Av. The same date, tradition says, that the first temple had been destroyed by Babylon 6 centuries before. Now imagine you are one of the survivors, one of the thousands who escaped the burning city into the desert. You have nothing. Your temple is ash. Your city is rubble. Your family, scattered or dead. There is one place left in all of Judea where the flag of revolt still flies. One place Rome has not yet taken. A rock in the desert, 400 meters above the shimmering sea. Masada. The name itself is a transliteration of the Aramaic Metzadah, fortress, stronghold. From a distance, it looks like the earth itself has raised a fist against the sky. A mesa of pale sandstone, sheer on every side, surrounded by wadis and ravines that make approach a misery in any season. And on top, a world unto itself. Herod had built a triple-tiered hanging palace on the northern face, 3 terraces cantilevered over the cliff edge, each connected by carved staircases. The lowest terrace, 300 feet below the summit, offered a view across the Dead Sea to the mountains of Moab that modern visitors still find breathtaking. There were 2 bathhouses, a colonnaded swimming pool, mosaics of geometric precision, plastered walls painted to imitate marble, the likes of which no one in Judea could afford to import. Luxury. In a desert. On a cliff. But Herod's palace was not what interested the Sicarii who seized Masada in 66 CE, at the very beginning of the revolt. What interested them were the storerooms. Herod, paranoid to the last, had filled Masada with enough supplies to withstand a siege of years. Jars of wine, oil, grain, preserved food in quantities that archaeologists, excavating in the 1960s, still found intact. 2,000 years later, Masada could outlast almost anything. Almost. We know his name because Josephus preserved it. Eleazar ben Yair, the leader of the Sicarii at Masada, a man descended from Judas of Galilee, the founder of the Zealot movement, a family that had made resistance to Rome its covenant for 3 generations. After Jerusalem fell, approximately 960 people lived on Masada's summit. Men, women, children, fighters and families. A community. For 2 years, Rome let them be. There were larger priorities, other rebellions, entire provinces to pacify. But in 72 CE, the new Roman governor of Judea, Lucius Flavius Silva, turned his attention to the last unconquered position in the province. He brought the 10th Legion, 8 to 15,000 soldiers, siege engineers, and, in one of the most audacious feats of military construction in the ancient world, he began to build a siege ramp On the western face of Masada, an earthen and stone causeway rising from the desert floor to the summit, 250 feet of packed rubble, timber, and pure, brutal Roman will. The people on Masada watched it rise, day by day, week by week. They could do nothing to stop it. To sally out against 8 legionary cohorts would be suicide. To wait was merely to delay it. And so Eleazar ben Yair gathered his people and spoke to them. We don't have his actual words. What we have is Josephus's reconstruction, written decades later, fell through a historian who had personally surrendered to Rome and spent the rest of his life trying to justify it. But even through that lens, even with every caveat historians attach, the speech Josephus gives Eleazar burns with a particular light. Long ago, my brave men, we determined neither to serve the Romans nor any other save God, for God alone is the true and righteous Lord of men. Now the time has come that bids us prove our determination by our deeds. At this juncture, we must not disgrace ourselves. Hitherto, we have never submitted to slavery, even when it brought no danger with it. We must not choose slavery now, and with it, penalties that will mean the end of everything. Let our wives die before they are abused, and our children before they have tasted of slavery. And after we have slain them, let us bestow that glorious benefit upon one another mutually, and preserve ourselves in freedom as an excellent funeral monument for us. But first, let us destroy our money and the fortress by fire. For I am well assured that this will be a great grief to the Romans, that they shall not be able to seize upon our bodies, and shall fail of our wealth also. That night, the night before the final breach, the people of Masada gathered everything they had. They burned what could be burned, their possessions, their homes, the palace. But not, and this detail matters, not the storerooms, not the food. They left the food untouched, so that the Romans would know that they did not die of hunger, that they chose. 10 men were chosen by lot to do what had to be done, then 1, and then silence. The next morning, the Romans pushed their siege tower to the summit and broke through the wall. They expected a battle. They were prepared for resistance. They found fire and silence. 2 women had hidden with 5 children in the water cisterns. They had refused the pact. They emerged and told the Romans everything. Josephus writes that the Romans, expecting to celebrate, found themselves unable to exult over enemies so noble. He says they admired the resolve and could only mourn the contempt of death. The impossible victory at Beth Horon, the day Rome bled, had led here. The burning temple, the city that refused to die, had led here. And Eleazar ben Yair, the voice that chose for everyone, had led here, to a silence so complete it could be heard across 2,000 years. For 19 centuries, Masada sat in silence. It was never rebuilt, never reoccupied. The ramp the Romans built still stands, a scar on the western face that you can climb today. The snake path to the eastern gate still winds through the same dust. In 1963, Israeli archaeologist Yigael Yadin led one of the most extraordinary excavations in modern history. Over 11 months, 1,400 volunteers and 200 professional archaeologists stripped back the centuries. What they found defied expectation. The mosaic floors, still intact, the storeroom jars, still sealed. A synagogue, one of the oldest ever found, where the defenders had apparently continued to pray until the very end. and in one chamber, 27 ostraca, pottery shards with names written on them, 11 of them bearing the names of men. One reads, Ben Yair. Were these the 10 who drew lots that final night? We cannot know. History does not offer that certainty. But the possibility is almost too much to hold. After the State of Israel was established in 1948, Masada became something it had never been in antiquity. A symbol. Masada shall not fall again became the rallying cry of a nation born from the ashes of the Holocaust. A vow. An identity. Israeli paratroopers were sworn in on the summit. The story of Masada was taught in every school as the ultimate expression of Jewish resistance. But scholars, Israeli scholars among them, began to ask uncomfortable questions. Was Masada truly heroism? Or was it a community destroyed by a leadership that never asked them if they consented to die? Was the Masada complex, the idea that no surrender is possible, that death is preferable to compromise, a source of strength, or a dangerous legacy for a state that must find ways to make peace with its neighbors? These arguments continue. They are alive, and their aliveness is itself a tribute to the people who died on that rock. They are still being argued about, 2,000 years later. That is not nothing. We began with silence, a rock, a wind, a question. The Great Revolt lasted 7 years. It ended not with a battle, but with fire and silence on a desert summit. The temple was ash, Jerusalem was rubble. Hundreds of thousands were dead, enslaved, scattered across the empire. And yet, the Jewish people survived, not on Masada, but in the texts, the traditions, the rabbinic academies that rebuilt Judaism into something that needed no temple, no land, no political power to endure. The Romans, who built the ramp and breached the walls, are gone. The empire that seemed eternal, gone. The people they could not break are still here. The Masada shall not fall again.